Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today as we come together to learn more about adding the Immersive Reader to your JavaScript-based web apps. My name is Hussam Mohsini. I'm the Program Manager for Microsoft Reactor in Abu Dhabi. Microsoft Reactors are hubs for founders and developers to meet, learn, and connect to local peers, as well as industry-leading ideas and technology from Microsoft, partners, and the open source community. It's also home to the Microsoft for Startups program. With a diverse mix of hands-on workshops, expert panels, and community events, there is something for everyone. Check out our calendar of events on meetup.com and join our coming sessions. Our speaker today is Rory Preddy. Rory is a senior cloud advocate at Microsoft. Rory's focus for the last few years has been on research and development with a focus on cloud research, consulting, and training. His work in research got him deep insights into industry movements, trends, and news. Rory heads up the Middle East and Africa accessibility pillar for Microsoft, speaking and inspiring on how to empower everyone in every organization to achieve more. Feel free to ask questions during the session. We will have regular stops to answer these questions. And also feel free to tweet about the session and tag us on Reactor Abu Dhabi, that's the hashtag, and MSFT Reactor, that's the Twitter handle. And also make sure you adjust the playback settings to select the highest quality for the best experience during the session. And with all that said, I hand over the mic to our speaker to start the session.
Thank you so much, Hassan. I'm just going to do a little bit of a screen dance, which involves me just swapping over from my screen, and I'm going to add my content there. I'm going to share my screen, include system audio, because I've got a great video to actually show you. I've got my desktop there, and you should actually see that. I'm going to go share, wanting to share. And add content from the below, add content, there we go, send live. And let me tell you a little bit about myself. Hi everyone, I'm a senior cloud advocate focusing on cloud and Java. So even though this is JavaScript, it's Java with a little bit of JavaScript, which is pretty great. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be seeing how to connect with Azure Cognitive Services, and also a little bit how you can make your websites accessible with a simple little integration with Azure Cognitive Services. So I have my little PowerPoint pen. I'm going to start my little slideshows. You'll be able to see me there also. And like Hazem said, please feel free to ask questions in the chat there. And I'm going to use my little annotator here to annotate. So this is about Immersive Reader to empower users of all ages and disabilities. And this really is this little area here. This is the Immersive Reader and what you can actually do. And some of you will actually be familiar with this because this is actually baked in to nearly every Office product and Microsoft Edge. And it provides a reading experience on all of Microsoft's included products. You can access all of the information that I'm going to be mentioning today. Hazem will tweet out the slides a little bit later, so keep on looking for that. But all of the information that I'm mentioning today is available on https://aka.ms/immersive-java. You'll get some examples that I'll be showing you today, and a lot more information on immersive Java and accessibility. What we're going to be discussing today in the agenda, first of all, I'm going to do a refresher for Accessibility 101. What is accessibility? And we'll do a small little demo also on how you can use some of the Microsoft tools to check for accessibility. Then we're going to look at what is Immersive Reader, the cognitive services, how to connect to it, and what are its features. And finally, we're going to connect with the Java app, Java with JavaScript on the front end, to the Cognitive Services API. And if everything goes well, don't worry, I have my demo backed up. We're going to actually be able to deploy to Azure and create the Cognitive Services and see our app in production. So what is accessibility? First of all, let's actually define what disability is. Now, when you go to a doctor and you say to them, oh, I'm not feeling too good, and the doctor looks at you and goes, I think you've got disability. No, the only time that you will feel disabled is when you have mismatched human interactions. And for example, you've created a website and the website doesn't cater for colorblind people. The person will only feel colorblind, will only feel disabled if he actually is not catered for. So we believe at Microsoft that disability is mismatched human interactions based on the premise that maybe you didn't or weren't aware of that person's accessibility requirements. It's also broken up into 4 main accessibility principles, and we go by the Web Center of Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG, and they say you can have one of the principles is perceivable. Can you see it? So, for example, font size, color. Operable, can you use it? Navigable by your keyboard, navigable by a mouse. Understandable, can you understand it? They also include the requirement for ADHD, for autism spectrum, and then robust, it won't break future technologies. For example, if you take your site and you make it responsive and you turn it from landscape to portrait, it shouldn't actually break because a lot of people who have accessibility requirements actually surf using their mobile in a landscape manner. So to do that, I'm going to show you one of our just one of 2 demos, and we're going to go to accessibilityinsights.io. And this is the open source tool chain that Microsoft has provided to anyone for free. And it uses the X engine underneath it to scan your systems and give you insights onto whether or not you're accessible or not, and even give you some hints on how to do it. So I'm going to get out of PowerPoint here, and I'm going to go into my Chrome browser to show you that this actually works in Chrome. And then I've got this little site here that I've got called the w3.org, and this is the before and after demonstration for inaccessible and accessible. And you can see here, I've got a little tourism site here, welcome to City Lights, and I've got some, and this looks accessible. I've got some images here, but if I look a little bit closer and I right click on that image and I go inspect, you'll see here that this isn't accessible because that image doesn't actually have an alt tag. So anyone with a screen reader won't actually see it. And not only that, but when we go to Killer Bees and we go inspect, you'll see there that they've actually been using line breaks and not proper line items. So another screen reader for visually impaired people won't be able to actually see that because it's not actually doing proper HTML. So how do we test this? You can go into the Chrome store, the Edge store, and you can install Accessibility Insights for Web. You click on it there. You go to FastPass, which actually checks a very quick way to do that, FastPass. And you'll see immediately it gives you a report for automated checks. Hey, look, color contrast. The language is not there, image out, the label is incorrect, and the link names are. But most importantly, it actually visually represents them on the issues. And you can see here the image out. You can click on that. You can actually go file that issue straight to GitHub, copy the failure issues, inspect the HTML, gives you all the rules, and even gives you fixes on how to do that. In the tool also, you can do tab stops. So if we go here and we go and we click on, we want ad hoc tools, and you can click on tab stops. You can also check whether this is accessible with tabs. You can see there that it's not accessible. The first tab goes there, the second tab doesn't go there. Let's go to the accessible page. We're going to the accessible page. Now we run our FastPass there on FastPass, and we see there that there aren't any accessible problems there. We can also click on tab stops. Let's switch on tab stops. And if I tab through here, it is nice and navigable. And this is an accessible page. So this is Accessibility Insights, the Chrome add-in. And that's a nice way for you to actually work out, do I currently have accessible issues? Now, if you do, there's 2 ways to fix them. One is to use this tool to actually go in and fix them. 2 is actually put in an immersive reader immediately into your code, which we're going to look at now how to do, and it automatically fixes all of your accessible issues because it actually creates a frame for people to look at the text in a well thought out and accessible way. So let's close that and let's go through to our PowerPoint again. So that's the first demo. You can go to accessibilityinsights.io. Next one, let's look at how to actually do this. If you don't want to code everything, how to use Azure AI Services. So first, a little brief primer on Azure AI Services. We have the bot service, so it's accelerated development for conversational AI. Most of you are talking to bots every day, and a lot of them are actually hosted on Azure. And you can ask them if you have a little question mark at the bottom that say, speak to an agent. That's a bot, actually, and then it forwards it if it can't answer the question. Then we have the cognitive services, which we're going to go through in this demo now. And then we have Azure Machine Learning, your TensorFlow and your AutoML and your ML.NET for your management services, create your AI models with productivity. But we're here to talk about Microsoft Cognitive Services. And they're really broken up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 categories. But what about Immersive Reader? No, Immersive Reader is actually under language, but Immersive Reader actually uses a lot of the other cognitive services. It's kind of like a high-level cognitive services. So we have vision, video indexer, computer vision, face, custom vision, form recognizer, ink recognizer. Then we have speech recognition, custom speech, translated speech, unified speech. Then we have language, text analytics, Immersive Reader, translated text, LUIS or language understanding, Q&A maker, decision, content moderator, anomaly detector, personalizer. And then we have all of the different Bing search forms that you can actually go in: web, image, news, video, local business. And Immersive Reader actually uses a lot of the text features, but it also uses image recognition and a lot of the other ones to kind of bring in a nice immersive experience. So like I said, you are using it right now. Here's a nice demo on Microsoft Teams. So let's do that again. So we've got Microsoft Teams. You can click on the little clips there and you can go Immersive Reader, and immediately it will open up that, and it'll give you all of these features that you would have in Word, and also using the cognitive services. So what are those features that you say? What can it do? One, it can actually tell you the different features for language. And English is a hard language to actually understand. Just ask my 9-year-old when he says, "But this is a gobbledygook language. What are you talking about? This doesn't make sense." And I say, "It's English." He goes, "Can't I learn another language?" I know, you're English. You have to speak English. So you've got your nouns, your adjectives, language, and then you've got also translating to 60 different languages. I know that they have Arabic, and they've done a lot of great work in Arabic recently. Spanish, French, German, all of them. And you can see they're translating to 60 language, and read back the language in the actual term, and you can change the speaker voice to something that you would prefer also. Then we've got pronunciation. You can see, you can click over there and you can actually pronounce it or read back it, or you can read back the entire paragraph. You've got the syllables that'll break it up into syllables. And finally, you've got pictures. If you want to see an actual visual representation of the noun that you're looking at, if you see their tools that will actually show you the visual representation of that. So, and this is built in, all of these features are actually built into Office, Excel, Word, OneNote, Microsoft Edge, nearly every Microsoft product that you can think of, because it's our mission to actually empower every person in every organization to achieve more. And one of those key things that we've identified is to do it through the tooling that we provide. So let's talk about how to connect our Java app, and that's really the crux of the demonstration that we can do. So first of all, let's go create a cognitive services, and we're going to do that. I've got a script that can do that. We're going to go through the script and see how that does it. Afterwards, we're going to set up authentication. Well, the script is going to do it for us. We're going to look at how it does that. We're going to create a Java web app with Tomcat. I've already created that. I'm going to go through it with you and see how it works. And then we're also going to look at how it integrates with the JavaScript on the front end. We're going to host it on Azure App Services. And then finally, we're going to launch the Immersive Reader. And hopefully, if everything runs fine, then it should actually go in and read it. And we haven't changed the underlying website. We've just connected to a cognitive services and made our site accessible. So setting up the Immersive Reader, the first thing you want to do, you want to configure authentication and authorization. You want to create an AAD or API key for your authentication. What we're going to do, we're going to create an OAuth tokenized mechanism. It's pretty simple when you see how it works, though. Basically, you create a user. The user has a service principal. You say, "Get me a token." You authenticate against the service, which already understands that the user has access, and then you can actually use the service. That will connect to a cognitive services Immersive Reader resource, and then finally configure your website to use the Immersive Reader SDK and request a token. What does that look like? So this is just an example of doing this manually in the portal. We all also script it in live now. So you create it there. You go into Cognitive Services Marketplace, Immersive Reader. It is in preview, so it means that it's free, but it doesn't have an SLA. So you created your resource group, your pricing tier, which you can see there, S0, which is free. Your resource. We've touched on pricing. Then you've got your authentication, and our script will create this for us. You can see there under enterprise applications, I've got my Immersive Reader AAD, and it's got my object ID and application ID. And that I'm going to actually create a service principal link to that. You can see there's my access control IAM, and that's my role that I have there that I've assigned my service principal. I've got my Cognitive Services user, Immersive Reader AAD with my Cognitive Service, and that gives my user access, as long as I've got a password, username, and password, to the underlying Cognitive Service resource that I created. A nice little description. I've got my client app, which is your web, and the web then will go say to Azure AD, please get me a token that is authenticated, and via that token then I'm going to actually go in and speak to my resource web API. When you do that, it actually authenticates against login.windows.net.http, which is pretty interesting, and that's how it works with the AAD, the Active Directory credentials. It checks whether it can actually log into login.windows.net. Obviously, you need to keep your keys secret when you do authenticate there, so never share them with anyone. I am going to share them with you only because I'm going to delete it immediately after the presentation. And keep calm, it's demo time. Now, if you want to have a look and play around with it, I put everything on my GitHub repo, github.com/RoryP, Immersive Java. So you can go around and play with that. And that's the actual Java version that you can host on Azure. So let's go in and create our resources. So I'm going to minimize that. I'm going to close tab stops there. And I'm going to close this site here. Now I've got my portal resource here, my Azure portal. And this is really where you want to start. Now I can create it, and I've already kind of created one here previously. Let's actually go in there, and I want to show you this. Well, yeah, so that's what I created and deleted, Rinse and repeat, always with a demo. That's what you need to do. So yeah, it's deleted. Now I want to create my resource via Cloud Shell. So I'm going to open up my Cloud Shell. You can also do it via the portal. And Cloud Shell comes with everything, Git, Java installed, nearly everything you need. And we just want Bash. We want PowerShell and Bash there. And on the website that I sent you with that link, that aka.ms/immersive Java, you can actually get the PowerShell script to actually go and create everything that I showed you, the Immersive Reader resource. I'm going to go copy here. I'm going to go create my script there. So hi, I'm going to go create my Immersive Reader resource, and it just goes and sets a Bash script to go and create all of my resources that I need to do. I'm going to go into my PowerScript, and I'm going to right click there and go paste. And that's all it's going to do is going to create my script for me. Yeah, it created my script. And then I've pre-created my script to call it. I've got it here, and we can go through here. So it's going to call my script. It's going to use my Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. It's going to create a resource name, a domain to create it in also, which is basically like a web domain. The free tier, it's going to do it in East US. It's going to create a resource name, so the Cognitive Service resource there, the resource group name for that resource. And then for my Active Directory, is going to create a display name for my app, the URL that I'm going to actually identify myself with, and then also my secret there, which now you know, but I'm going to delete it immediately, so you can't really use it. So let's just copy this, and you'll see here that it creates it in my Cloud Shell, because I've got my batch script there. I paste it in there, and it'll go through it one step by step. So it's setting my active subscription to Visual Studio. Resource group doesn't create, it will create my resource group for me. And then it actually says, wait a second, it's going to create my Immersive Reader Cognitive Service in East US. Did it, created it. Now it's going to go and authenticate it. So let's hold thumbs and let's see if it's going to actually create it. Sleeping for 5 seconds while the Immersive Reader resource is created. And then it's hopefully creating service principal linked to the Immersive Reader resource. When that's done, and then the service principal with granted access. Now I've got all my client secrets that I can actually authenticate with, never share that with anyone. But I'm not going to actually use this one because I've already got my Java app running and in my Immersive Reader. So we can go check this Immersive Reader resource. We can actually do that, and we can go check it. But the demo one that I've got is not that name. Let's go here. And I want to go to Cognitive Services. And if you remember, we called it Immersive Reader RPZA. That's the one we're going to use for the demo. I can go into there, and then I can go into also see my keys that I can see there. I can go my quick start keys and endpoints. If you want to redo that, but we have our JSON keys there, and that's the URL that I'm going to hit. And this is the actual one that I'm going to use. And I'm not going to really show you all the keys and endpoints there, but yeah, let's go back in and see how we're going to use it. So the first thing you want to do when you have that endpoint there is that you actually want to create a resource with those in an environment variable. And I actually have it here. So I've created a resource up front, a Tomcat instance on app service. And in my Tomcat instance under configuration, I actually have my keys actually as environment variables. Now you can use this also as a managed identity. You can actually use managed identity. This was just simpler to do that. And I've got my client ID and my client secrets. I've hidden them there, great for demos. And then my domain that I'm going to hit there, and all of that. So now everything's authenticated, so I can actually go in and deploy my app and create it under my Tomcat app service. So let's go do that. I've got my Visual Studio Code Insiders Edition, which is absolutely fantastic. And I've got my little cloned repo that I showed you, the immersive Java repo that I've got there. So the first thing we want to do, we want to authenticate there. So I've got a servlet here, and a servlet's like ASP.NET in Java. So I go do get, and I've got all my little variables that I've already set up here, my tenant ID, client secret, and subdomain, and they get the system environment variables that I've actually linked to my application via the application parameters. I do some checks there, and then I go and say, okay, cool, get token, because I want to authenticate my token, and then send it through to the JavaScript. So the token there, it goes into login.windows.net, like I said before there, gets an HTTP URL connection, sets the content type, and then streams through my secrets, and then returns back a token response.append token, and then I've got my token in my string, and I return that back. So the first thing that we're going to do is we've got an index.jsp. We want to get that token. So if you see here, I've got my index.jsp, and I've got my little JavaScript there, and I've got my get auth server there locally, and I get my token. And once I get my token, I then want to go into my domain for my immersive reader, so in the subdomain, and I want to actually go and resolve that. And once I resolve that, then I can actually go in and trigger my JavaScript to get my launch immersive reader. Now this launch immersive reader here, handle function launch immersive reader, it's basically just using the JavaScript library that I've imported at the top, and it goes in and just says launch async. So it launches an async reader of immersive reader, and then it launches an iframe of the reader based on the content we specify. Now what is the content we specify? I've got a little div here, and we can change the content a little bit. So I've got about immersive reader, and immersive reader is a tool that implements proven techniques to improve comprehension for reading. So rather, I'm going to say there that Hussam, let's see if Hussam actually can pronounce your name right. Thank you so much for letting me speak at your party. Yeah, that's right. So and then full stop. Okay, so we want to see that actually speak there. We want to go file, we want to save that, and then we want to go into our Azure little window here, into our app service. When that eventually comes through. But I do have the demo, so let me show you what the demo actually looks like before we actually do that deployment. When this actually comes through, there we go, extension host terminated. Oh, of course it did. Luckily, with the law of demos, is that I've actually published everything beforehand. Yes, law of demos. So let's actually go and see. So I have actually gone there. You right click on there on app services, and you publish it to your Tomcat instance here. So on my Tomcat instance, I have actually published it, and you'll see there that I've got my URL. You click through to your URL. It won't have Hazem's name there, but it still has the previous one. Immersive Reader is a tool that implements proven techniques to improve reading comprehension. And you'll see there I've got my button. Now, this is not necessarily accessible. So if I click here, it might actually say, let's do the fast passing here and see if what problems it has. Yeah, it says here, HTML is laying its shares, so it doesn't actually, it's not actually accessible. So it's not accessible over there. But let's click on our Immersive Reader, and it connects to our Azure Cognitive Services. It gets our token, and now if it's all working,
Immersive Reader is a tool that implements proven techniques to improve reading comprehension.
My site is accessible. I can go in there and I can change the text preferences to all the different texts and themes to high contrast, show source formatting. I can even go there and change the grammar to the syllables, nouns, adjectives, and show labels. So I can, if I wanted to, and most importantly, I can also go to line focus. So I can focus on the line, picture dictionary, and then let's see if we can actually do Arabic. Let's do Arabic Egyptian. Arabic Egyptian there. Let's see if we can do
Comprehension for emerging.
Okay, it doesn't have Arabic. Let's go Arabic there, Saudi Arabian. Let's go by documents. There we go.
القارئ غامرة لجعل القراءة أكثر سهولة للجميع. القارئ.
We now have an accessible multilingual application that adheres to WCAG 2.1 AA that you can actually give to not only people with learning difficulties, cognitive difficulties, hearing, and all of the features that we want to do. And all we did was just actually tie in to a Azure Cognitive Services and make a little change with JavaScript and Java on our front end. So let's go. That's my demo. But I've got a video that I want to show you that I think this is important not only for adults on the site, but this is also important for school-going children. And we've seen what the COVID climate has actually done. And one thing that Microsoft is really good at is that we provide learning tools that actually help kids with autism, with learning difficulty, with dyslexia, tools like this child is experiencing.
The fact that over the summer, a child can go from basically nothing to having the world at their fingertips and being able to read and being willing to try, it's more than a miracle. I think it's more than anybody can expect. Even in kindergarten, Ajay was incredibly bright, but he couldn't read. The difficulty reading continued to second grade. Shortly after Anju was diagnosed with dyslexia, a friend of mine said she saw something online about a tool from Microsoft for kids with dyslexia. I made an appointment at our local Microsoft store. We went in, they downloaded learning tools, asked Anju to sit down, and my son read. It was amazing. Ajay, in that moment, conquered this fear and realized that he could access something that had been inaccessible to him. I saw my little boy read and knew that here was an answer, that here was something that could change his life. Microsoft Learning Tools has been a miracle in our lives. He could get everything in the same font. He was able to lengthen his spaces between words, and that was amazing and so simple. Ajay's been happier, more confident. He was living his life where the written word was an enemy, and now it's a thing to be conquered.
So in conclusion, what we've seen today is that it's possible to actually change your website to cater for every user that you have and make them not feel disabled, make it accessible for all of your customers. We've looked at accessibility, we've looked at accessibility insights.io, the tooling that is freely available that you can check and make changes onto your site. We've looked at the Immersive Reader available in Microsoft Office products, Microsoft Edge, and some of its features. And finally, we looked at how easy it was to actually go in and integrate with Cognitive Services API to make every website accessible, even if you have a very complicated product. So all of this is available at https://acad.ms/immersive Java. And I'll leave the slide up here. And if we can answer questions, that will be great. Hazem, I'm guessing, do we have any questions? Yeah, we do have some. Let's just go see published. And it goes there, found on Meetup. That's quite moving. Thank you. Oh, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, it means a lot to me. You know, I have achondroplasia, so dwarfism, and one thing when Microsoft approached me to come work for them, I said, "Tell me a little bit about your accessibility mission." And they said, "We're one of the biggest believers and supporters of accessibility in the world," and it was one of the critical reasons why I wanted to join them as a company, and to have a mutual understanding between my employee and myself that we can actually change the world. And it's as simple as that. And to see the joy in a child's face, and to an elderly person's face whose sight is also fading, and give them the ability to actually not feel disabled, is the greatest accomplishment that I can ever have. Okay, thanks everyone. We don't have any more questions. So I'm going to leave that slide up there, and please follow the Twitter, me on Twitter at Rory Preddy, and follow Hazem on the MS Reactor. And make sure that you look out for the slides that we're going to send out a little bit later. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Rory, for the session today. I would like to thank you for sharing your experience with us, and I also would like to thank our community for joining us. I'm just going to share a couple of things with them. Starting my screen share right now. Okay, yes. So we got the survey here. This helps us understand more the content that you would like to see in the Reactor. It helps us program future sessions and understand more about you and your interests. So please spend like a couple of minutes taking this survey, giving us this feedback. We would really appreciate it. I have the link in the Q&A section so that you can check it. There is a unique code for each session, and today's session code is 7789, so use it in the survey. And I want to share with you 3 upcoming sessions that will be interesting for you to join next week. On Sunday, there is a session on monitoring and production applications with Application Insights. We will demonstrate Application Insights integration with Visual Studio during development phase. After that, we'll learn how to use Application Insights on a real environment to analyze the performance bottlenecks and troubleshoot bugs. So join us on Sunday for that session. And also on Monday, there is a workshop on data science, taking the data science into the next level with Azure ML Studio. In that workshop, we will learn how we can easily transition between Jupyter notebooks and a cloud solution using the power of Azure. So with the Monday workshops, we're building up this knowledge, and you can join us. It's a continuation of last week and the week before it. It requires you to have an understanding of how you can use Jupyter notebooks. So you can join us on Monday the 20th. And on Tuesday, Hank Wollman, a cloud advocate as well at Microsoft, is giving a session on AI on the Microsoft stack. And in this session, we will have a deep dive into the AI stack. We will start with a pre-trained cognitive services and move on to a more advanced tooling like Machine Learning Studio and Azure Machine Learning Services. There are more sessions that you can find also on our meetup page, Reactor Abu Dhabi. I have the link shared with you in the Q&A section, and it will be later also available in the description of this video when we have this video available on our YouTube channel. I'll also like to share with you 3 more links. One is to subscribe to our newsletter. This is something you can continue the journey with and get a monthly email sent to you about all the interesting happenings coming from the Reactor Abu Dhabi and also from the other reactors and the global events that we're doing and all the happenings and news from the reactors. So you can join this newsletter by checking out the link. This one is our location page, our reactor website, and it will be available there. You can also subscribe to the Azure developer community also to get to all the developer news in the region and the happenings and the webinars and the trainings that will be interesting for you to join. There's a special link that I'm gonna also be sharing with you in the Q&A section to join the community, and also you can continue learning and explore the cloud society. There are learning paths and webinars on that website as well. I'd like to thank you again and thank our speaker Rory for giving us this session today, and hope you all stay safe, and we hope to see you more at the Reactor Abu Dhabi. Stay safe everyone and have a great rest of the day.